Tales from the Tavern, The Wizard, Part 5. Many days passed, and the warm sunshine disappeared faster than a summer rain. The days were becoming colder and wetter at a frightening pace. Winter will soon be upon us, and I was painfully aware that I was woefully unprepared. I had no money and no personal effects for obvious reasons, save the clothes on my back. The wizard was outside, tending to his garden on his hands and knees. I approached him and gave a polite greeting. Without turning his head, he said,
"Yes, my friend, how can I help you? Do you seek guidance or wisdom? Or perhaps you require more work to do? There is certainly no shortage of that here."
I thought for a moment and said, "Well, guidance, I suppose. It just occurred to me that winter is approaching rather quickly, and as you know, I only possess the clothes on my back. You don't happen to have a spare cloak hidden somewhere in your cottage, do you?" The wizard turned around and straightened up, casually brushing the dirt and debris from his shirt. He set down the trowel and said,
"Your concern is quite reasonable. Forgive me, for it was my intention to bring up this matter much sooner, but I have many distractions, as you know. But worry not, for we shall make the journey to the nearest town, where both of our needs shall be met. We leave tomorrow before the sun breaches the horizon."
I scratched my head and said, "But how am I to acquire the things I need? I have no money and nothing of value to trade." The wizard smiled and said,
"Oh, there are ways. There are ways, my friend."
The biting chill of the early morning stung all over my body as I got dressed. The birds broke their silence, and a choir of chirps could be heard reverberating throughout the forest. We departed just as soon as the sun began to crest over the horizon. With walking sticks in hand and our packs on our back, we travelled at a brisk pace for quite some time through the forest. Headed in a northern direction, we did not approach a clearing until many miles in our journey. We finally reached the edge of the forest where it connected laterally to a dirt road. The road curved slightly and ushered us northwest. Besides stopping for quick rests or relieving ourselves, we travelled at an impressive pace without incident or delay. For the last mile or so, the road curved ever so slightly until the town finally appeared in the distance. The trees shrank back, and the landscape gave way to a large town nestled between sweeping rolling fields and a wide river. You may not be surprised to know, but I was rather shocked at the imposing demeanour of this town, with its large and many stone houses. Some stacked as high as 3 stories. There was a great number of people hustling and bustling going about their daily business. There was so much noise, customers arguing over prices, and merchants advertising their wares. The shouting was so chaotic that it was difficult to distinguish where it was coming from. When we came close to the merchant's district, as the wizard called it, he put a hand on my shoulder and stopped me.
"You ask, how can you acquire the goods you need with no money and nothing to trade? Come, I will show you."
When we arrived, the wizard grabbed my shoulder again and gestured to the sign. I looked up and silently mouthed the words, "Barlow Bank." It was warm and stuffy inside the shop. A large fire was blazing in a corner, and the air smelled of fresh parchment. At the front desk sat an old and frail-looking man, holding a dripping quill and counting silver pennies. The man was in deep concentration and was quite startled when we got his attention. His annoyance disappeared immediately. He set down his quill and put on a silky tone with an unsettling smile. He sprawled out his hands and said with a strange accent,
"What can I do for you, gentlemen? Do you wish to establish a line of credit? I have not seen you before, but then again, the town is quite large, so I see new faces from time to time."
I glanced at the wizard, and he nodded toward the old man. I approached the desk and said, "Forgive me, sir, but an institution like this is quite foreign to me. Can you explain to me what a line of credit is?" The man looked delighted and grinned broadly.
Of course, my friend. I am here to help after all. Well, a line of credit is basically borrowed money, free money of course, it's very simple. I give you a sum of money and all you have to do is, over a specific period of time, pay it back to me, with interest. How much would you like to borrow?
Everything about the man was unsettling and I became very suspicious. But surely the wizard brought me here for a good reason. So I said 20 silver pennies should be sufficient to cover my costs. But I must ask, how much interest do you require, and how long do I have to repay? The man gave a slight frown and shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Then he spoke with his oily tone.
20 silver pennies is an agreeable amount, a trivial sum really. As for the interest, I'm asking for a modest 50%. It's a great deal really. You won't find many lenders with rates below that. You will have a fortnight to repay the sum.
Though the wizard at times would teach me arithmetic, I was not quite comfortable to deal with men such as this. I knew enough. But concepts such as these are unknown and confusing to me. I looked at the wizard, and he seemed to guess my thoughts.
It means that in a fortnight you must pay not only the 20 pennies, but also an additional 10 pennies to cover the interest. 50% or half of 20 is 10. Hence, you borrow 20 but pay back 30. However, the faster you pay it back, the less interest you will accrue.
I was incredulous. What an extortionate amount of interest to be paid in such a short period of time. Irritation began to well up in me. I must work with my own 2 hands, trading my time and labor so that this man can sit safely at home, drinking wine and watching the silver fall into his coffers while he does nothing. It then began to dawn on me. Places like this prey on desperate or foolish people while their wealth continues to expand, while doing little to no work. So I said, "Sir, why must you charge such a large rate of interest? You said yourself 20 silver is a trivial sum, and at the moment I am a man with little means of paying it back so quickly. Can you not extend the length of time or offer a much lower rate?" The man's face flashed with anger, and he slammed his ledger shut.
How dare you haggle with me, you filthy peasant? You should be thankful I've even agreed to lend you a single penny. Look around you, you fool, and tell me what the choice do you have. If the terms are not agreeable, then you can leave.
He pointed toward the door, his eyes wide and lip trembling. He was right, of course. I did not have many options. With much reluctance, I agreed to the terms. The man counted out 20 silver pennies, made a note in his ledger, and handed me the purse. We left the bank and agreed that we would meet just outside the main gate we came in when we finished our business. I perused the many shops and vendors and gathered what I needed. Warm clothes for the winter, a new hatchet and a good quality knife. I went back to the main gate and sat on a large rock for a time, lost in thought. Hours later, the wizard appeared from the crowd and was leading a donkey saddled with many things. I was astonished, and wondered how the wizard had come by such coin. The wizard noticed my look, but did not acknowledge it. Instead, he dropped a weighty coin purse in my hand and said,
"Take this, my friend, and go settle your account with Mr. Barlow."
I opened my mouth to protest, but he shooed me away and ignored me while he adjusted the donkey's pack. I settled my account with Barlow Bank. The man was not pleased at all and sneered as he counted out 20 silver pennies. He made a note in the ledger and demanded I leave. He was a most unpleasant person. The journey home was quite enjoyable, but mostly made in silence. Eventually, I turned to the wizard and said, "Wizard, why did you settle my account with the bank, and how did you come by such coin? I am very grateful, but my curiosity will not let the matter lie."
I will answer the last question first. I have many ways of acquiring money when necessity arises. One of them is selling herbs and medicine to apothecaries. As you can imagine, the medicine I can produce is far more effective than any bottle of snake oil a charlatan would peddle. As for why I gave you the coin, it was to save you from a most horrible circumstance you would have found yourself in if luck and providence was not on your side. You would have essentially become a debt slave for the rest of your life. Who is to bring me tea if you are rotting in a jail cell?
We both laughed. Then I asked, do such institutions exist in the future? The practices of Barlow Bank seem most immoral. The wizard stopped and gave an almost imperceptible frown. He clutched his walking stick and gave it a few taps on the dirt and said,
This is quite a complicated question to explain in full. To put it in simple terms, yes, many institutions like Barlow Bank exist all over the world, though they are typically used by only the most desperate and destitute people. The consequence of the spread of banking and money lending all over the world is the creation of the debt slave class. Most people in the future accumulate a dangerous amount of debt, either through necessity, desperation, or clever advertising. They pay their debts down, just enough to keep their head above water, so to speak. This creates a vicious cycle that most people never break out of. You will be horrified to know that many people live their entire lives on credit. In the future, these institutions will become so powerful that even their own governments are beholden to them.
This greatly disturbed me, but I decided not to dwell on the matter. When we arrived at the cottage, we chatted for a bit while we unpacked our things.
And that is why urine encourages the herbs to grow so vigorously. The discovery was, of course, an accident, mind you. But now don't give me that look. Do you see any oxen or chickens in this forest? I make do with what I have, even as unsanitary as it may sound.
I gave a nervous chuckle and grabbed the last of my belongings. We passed the rest of the night together in silence. I attentively sharpened my knife and hatchet, while the wizard pored over a large dusty book. When I decided to retire for the night, I bade the wizard good night, went to my room and carefully put away my belongings. The dim light flickered around the walls of the cottage. I looked out the window and noticed the first snow of winter falling gently to the ground. I laid down, bundled myself tightly in my sheets, and blew out the candle.